everyone. This is Sparkle On, and I'm Davy Jags. Sparkle is your happiness, passion, and self-worth, and nothing can ever dull your light. Today, I'm a little nervous because I have what should be my favorite guest, but we've never had him on the show before. This is Thomas Paolini, my boyfriend. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Davy. I'm happy to be here.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
So we got the idea. We're introducing a new series with Sparkle On because Tom has been some of the biggest inspirations behind me building out this show and coming back to Sparkle in every form that I have tried over the years to build this project and this movement. As I've mentioned on the show multiple times, Sparkus was born out of the darkest times of my life. And Tom has been a huge part of my own healing journey. But he also helps a lot of other people heal professionally in his life. It's just the kind of the energy he exudes. And we want this, our Sparkle Sundays, to be a series where we're kind of just casually talking because Tom holds so much wise wisdom that he shares with the people around him. And I was finally ready to let everyone else get a glimpse of that I get on a daily basis. I'm kind of protective over it, but I think Tom's shine is important. And I've noticed over the years that Sundays tend to be this day where him and I reset. We'll go walk in the park for like hours, or, you know, with long distance the last 3 years, we'll talk on FaceTime for a long time. And it's like the only day I think out of the entire week that we get to really reconnect with why we're best friends. And obviously we have our moments in between, but it's a recharge day. And so we're bringing that to your Sunday. So how this all started was Tom entered us into a contest. Do you want to tell us about the contest, Tom?
Sure, I can talk about the contest. I was just on Instagram. This had to be about a month ago or so now. But you always get those little ads that are like, enter to win something. And it was like America's favorite couple. It was like win $20,000 in a spread in Variety magazine. And I saw Jeff Goldblum attached to it, and I was like, oh, this might be an actually legit thing. So I just did the basic, like, oh yeah, like just put your email in, and like it says like enter who you are. And then like it was like you've been entered in the thing. Got an email back, and it was like you've been selected to like participate in the contest. So I had to like make a profile, and then this was at the point I informed you that, hey, I entered us in this contest. So,
which is wild because I don't really like contests. Tom is always like, I always make like off the cuff remarks of like, oh, maybe one day we'll win the lottery, and he'll be like, Davey, you need to play the lottery if you actually want to win the lottery. But I never want to play the lottery.
that was a big part of my mindset for this, was that I was like, why not? Why not? It just had to like put in some basic information. But no, it was like asking me these questions, and I was like, OMG, like this is more your avenue of like, you know, you're a writer, you can like sort of make up little cute stories. And you were like, you didn't say I don't really care. You're just like, no, you do it. And I was like,
yeah,
okay. So I took the initiative, and I wrote all the little blurbs I could. I had a ridiculously small character count for what they were asking for. But that was it. I did it. I posted it, and then I sent it to you, and we were entered in the contest. And then once the voting started, there was just like, start posting about it on the internet. Tell all your friends, tell your parents, tell people to vote. And what's cool about it is the whole thing was connected to, it's a fundraiser for like raising food for the LA Food Bank, and for Oceana, which is like the protecting our oceans thing. So
Yeah, and after these fires, like our oceans need it more than ever.
but it's cool. Like, you know, $20,000 is, I think it's a lot of money, but it's definitely something that's like an incentive. But it's just cool. I think it'd be really nice to be able to advertise ourselves as being America's favorite couple. Because even if we don't have $20,000, we're still, you know,
You're my favorite.
we're still
couple.
the home team.
I'm us as a couple are my favorite. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But no, I being the competitive spirit that I am, would really like to win this contest. But I think what was funny was because like Tom would be calling and texting me about like, okay, like what's our favorite memory? And like me as like a creative writer, I was like, well, we can't encapsulate that all into like one memory. Like I'm just not going to do that. I'm not really good at also following the rules. And so like wrote like helped him try to like phrase this whole thing with like the word count and all that. Then they like emailed him, no, like we need one memory. And then it was like we kind of like started bickering about like our perceptions of our own favorite memories. Like we would pick a memory and then it was like we were trying like it was funny because even in this like we've been dating for 6 years now, it's like we don't know how to eloquently put like that kind of sparkle moment into words. And so like I think that's kind of like what this series is, and it's like it's even difficult now, I think, right now in this actual moment. Like, you know, I sometimes wonder what would it be like if someone was just listening in on like all like when we go on our like road trips and we just talk about like literally everything under the sun, and then you get so philosophical and I'm like very overwhelmed and then I start crying and then I'm like, oh my God, this is so healing. Like you are so healing. So it's like, I don't know, but I think it kind of starts like obviously one of the questions on the forum was like, what was it? Like, how did you meet as a couple, right?
Yeah, it was. I can't even think of it now. I've looked at it so many times, but haven't actually read through it again.
Yeah, I think it was like, how did you meet?
Or it was tell us your origin story.
Right.
Something
and
like that.
even when we try to say, how do we meet? It's very convoluted. One, yes, because I was drunk, but that is not the point. The point is, I guess we'll start the series there. Was how do we meet? So should I say my version first?
You can do that. You talking about the memory portion of the profile and how you were saying we weren't seeing eye to eye. I was just giving you things or what I could fit in a text box, and you were like, you don't understand. That's not how I felt about it. And I was like, that's okay. You can just tell me what to say. But you didn't want to tell me what to say. So perhaps it's best if you put it the way you want it first.
Well, I also think that like, okay, so going back to like the way that we first met, right? It was like, there was so much about my perception of like, I don't even want to say relationships because I was not having those at that time. Like I was coming back from New York, swiping on Tinder, Hinge, all the things, Raya. Like, God, I had the worst date of my life on that app. That was crazy.
Was that the Davy Crockett hat guy?
I don't remember it ever describing it as a Davy Crockett hat guy. I described it as a beaver around his neck.
Yeah, wasn't that like Davy Crockett?
I mean, I guess that's kind of like Davy Crockett, but I don't like the fact that it's kind of associated like just like my name. I never described it as Davy Crockett.
Well, like
he had a beaver around his neck.
Whatever. I thought it was a hat.
All I know is I was not well.
It was real?
Right before I met Tom. I have no idea. I don't remember.
Doesn't matter.
But I was not doing so great in the dating department of things. And I didn't really want a boyfriend either. But it was one of those things that like you come back from college and you kind of just like figure like, because so much of my life at that point was like around performance, whether it was in sports, whether it was like, you know, trying to finish the degree. And then sex, like just straight up sex. And there was a lot of trauma associated in my life around that and the healing journey that I didn't even know I was about to go on until I met Tom as it relates to sex. And the first night that Tom and I met was like, we took a shot together and I was like, man, this guy's really cute. He did this like weird thing. We're in my parents' basement because we're like home for the holidays. And he like
Pre-game party.
Yeah, pregame party, like took this coaster, and it's a coaster of my dad's face. I don't know which family friend thought it would be cute to get coasters of my dad's face and have them printed, but that's the situation. And Tom just like puts the coaster next to his face and smiles just like my dad. Like just being a goof, and I don't know why I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I guess that's what happens when you think someone's cute. You just think they're really funny.
I said something.
I don't remember what you said.
I was like, look, we're twins.
Why? Because you were smiling?
Well, no, that was the joke, is because I'm me and your dad's an Indian man.
Yes, okay.
So
okay. But
we weren't twins, but I just was trying to be like, look, we're smiling together.
Yes. Now there's plenty of pictures of you and my dad smiling together.
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, he misses you dearly. Tom has moved to LA officially. I also forgot to mention that on this. But we took a shot together. We never stopped talking. We went to the bar and he bought me a beer, and then he offered to, we're going to expedite this story a little bit because it's long, but then he said like I said I wanted fries. He said, I'll take you to get fries. That was a game changer. But my crazy self thought it would be a good idea to bring Tom home to my parents' house. Well, you don't do that in my household. You don't bring boys over. And it was like, obviously there was no hooking up happening, but
Your friends were there.
yeah, but like after they left. And my sister also was like throwing batteries at Tom's head and was like, you are not going to be this stupid. And I was like, you're right, Mira. And then we stayed up all night watching like our favorite movies, which, mind you, back then I didn't let anyone know what my favorite movies were. Like you could take the wild guesses of like the rom-coms. Like I am an open book in many ways. But watching our favorite movies, and it was like, back then it was like, wow, like this guy still wants to hang out with me, all this stuff afterwards. And it sounds so sad that those were my standards, like, you know, basic human decency. But I think what was crazy in that was like coming out of like this weird like fog, right? Of like, not like in so many ways, college wasn't a normal experience. It was its own like world. And I think what was kind of cool is like Tom and I went to high school together, but we didn't know each other. And in some ways there was like a reminder of roots when we met. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what helped, at least in my healing. And so like I wonder if like you can speak to, obviously not everyone is going to end up with someone from their high school. Like that's not a realistic thing. But what would you say is essentially how a couple who's brand new to each other and maybe does meet on an app like can build roots? Because you're kind of so good at that, like that grounding, because I'm crazy over here and you're like, I'm just going to chill.
Well, I don't think there's a playbook for how to build roots. I think that it's, dependent upon, every unique individual interaction you're going to have with somebody. Depends if you meet on like you were saying, depends if you meet on a dating app or if you meet out at a bar, if it's through a friend connection or a blind date or whatever it might be. But I advocate in my life for just open communication with people. I struggle at times like communicating in like large groups, but like if I have something to tell somebody individually, I think it's just important to talk to them. But in order to build roots with somebody, you have to have like some sort of foundation. So if that foundation is just I think you look good, or like I was interested in like, your beaver on your neck.
Oh my God, please.
So
Please do not remind me of that.
no, I don't think, I think people trying to find something that they can actually build roots on is almost like you're missing the point of trying to build something with somebody else, because if there are roots there that can take place, they'll take place, and then you can sort of just grow together. I think too often times people are like worried about where their family is from, or like what school did you go to, or what your well, I shouldn't say like what your political affiliation is, because it's not really a good time for that. I think there's really.
I mean, that matters in a relationship, though.
No, yes, I just am saying I don't
like.
I think
we would not be together if you were.
I think the nuance in political discourse is beyond the pale at this point. So, but that being said, all of those things are important for just basic connection with people. But I think the best version of a relationship is to look at it like like a plant. Like you can put a plant anywhere, like, and it'll grow. Now, certain plants won't grow everywhere, but if there's soil there, the roots will grow, and then whatever. I used to have a saying like I'm like a tree.
You're like the tree.
No, like I'm like a tree. People would say like,
you are tall.
Do you think
You're
could?
Very tall. He's 6'3".
That's not the point. Do you think you could make it living? Obviously, when you moved out here, like when you were in New York, and you would ask me these questions, and other people would be like, do you think you could see yourself in New York City? Like, do you think you could see yourself in Los Angeles? And I would say I feel like a tree. Like, if you plant me, like, I'll grow as long as I get sunlight and water. Like, which those
Am
things.
I the sun?
Sure. But no, I don't. I think that's a goofy thing to say, but I think that goes for just anybody. I think your mindset about like what you're looking for, if it is like super deep connection, or if it's just somebody to talk to, somebody to be friends with, whatever it might be. I don't think there's a specific rule that you must apply to everything. And if that looks differently for different people, well, that's good, because it shouldn't look the same for everybody, because everybody's different. And yeah, I think I don't concern myself with like the roots, because I know you were like, we have similar backgrounds from the same hometown. We have very specific like things that we could point to in our past and be like, oh yes, these shared values helped us grow together. But I think the connection that we decided to foster outside of the connections that we had, to make our own connections, forge a new path for each other, grow, like plant and grow, what we had. That's sort of like what built us to where we are. It wasn't like because we came from the same hometown.
Yeah.
Now you want to talk about the universe and be like, well, how would we have met otherwise if we didn't like live in the same town and blah, blah, blah. That's fair. But I also think like, you kind of dictate what your reality is. So
well, I think
if you have the
choose your
opportunity,
destiny.
Sure.
Like a lot of people are like, no, like, and I think obviously that is true to a degree, but like, I also think that like, there's a choice. Like I made, oh my God, I remember like I was supposed to go back to New York. We were never supposed to be an official relationship. And I kind of said that in the beginning, and I forget the exact moment, but I remember like it was like, okay, like I still had my apartment, and I was like, I need to go back, but like I just actually have no desire. And it wasn't just you, right? Like that's not why I stayed in Pennsylvania for a couple of years. I think I just felt like I had nothing to go back to for New York, because it wasn't like I wasn't landing like the type of job that I wanted. I wasn't really sure what I exactly wanted in general. And then it was like, well, wait a second. I also really love this person and it kind of freaks me out. And I think it's also very okay to choose this over anything else that I was trying to do. And it was weird because we were really, really young. And so, like, I think what's interesting too is like when we talk about Sparkle, it's like, you know, Sparkle is this, it's all these different facets of your identity. But like, there was a lot we didn't even know about ourselves. And I think our culture specifically was like, it really hones in on like, you really need to figure yourself out, like to be with another person. And I think that exists and that's true for a reason. But there's so much, Tom, that we didn't know about like who we were. And there's like a lot of couples wouldn't have stayed a couple for like the things that we've gone through and like the discovery we've had to go through about ourselves. Like in what ways like did you kind of find like your light in parallel with like me?
Well, I don't believe for a second that you stayed in Why Missing because of me.
Why Missing Pennsylvania is where we're from. Hometown of Taylor Swift.
You didn't have... Yeah, Taylor Swift went to my high school. You didn't have a whole lot of options. And I think, you know, I don't like to use the word victim for a lot of things, but like I think everyone is a victim of circumstance in their life. If it's either, you know, where they're born, when they're born, anything like that, just who their parents are. There's things in your life you can't control. There's things that are outside of your, you know, purview in life that you just have to deal with. And those are always going to affect everything else. It's going to affect how you think, how you navigate. But the journey that I went on, because like you said, where we are now from where we started, I don't say we're completely different people at heart, but I'm a completely different version of myself. And I know that you're probably different in a much more authentic way than you were back then. You know, you're now a person who isn't afraid to start this podcast and, you know, go on this journey and do all these things. I was
really afraid to start this series of this podcast, though.
Well, but just, I think that, like you were saying, like I wasn't looking for somebody to help me grow. I wasn't looking for somebody to fall in love with and, you know, do all of these things. But we just had, you know, what we had specifically was, you know, an opportunity to just get to know each other as friends, basically. Like we became best friends over a short period of time. And that sort of allowed me to pursue the things that I feel like I always had an interest in, but I never really had a directional force to push me that way. So from your point of view, like you credit me with a lot of your ability to heal, and I credit you with, you know, just you were always so driven and passionate. You know, it kind of gave me the permission to also be driven and passionate about things. Now, you could look at that and say, oh, well, what if your passion's leading away from the other person? And like, I'm sure that can happen. You know, at a time, I felt like that might have been us. I felt like you were not moving away from me. It was just I wasn't able to keep up with you, to be honest. And I was like, is it my fault? Is it your fault? Is it just bad luck? You know, is it whatever? Obviously, COVID had a huge, you know, that dampened a lot of people's expectations for the future in the world. But no, I think when you look back and you're looking in the rearview mirror at all of this stuff, it's like we always had this. You know, we always had the ability to talk. We always had the ability to be honest and vulnerable in a way that was like, you know, we're having this talk on a podcast now, but if there was no cameras or microphones, we'd still be having the same conversation.
This conversation will probably still continue after the podcast, but we don't think that you guys want to listen to like 4 hours of our conversations. But it's like, I think, well, no, that's like the most important thing, because and it sounds so cliche because everyone just kind of boils it down to, well, they should be your best friend. Well, we need to like actually break down what that means. Is like, most of the people that I have dated before Tom I would never be friends with them. I actually hated them. Like, but then you add something like sex and intimacy and attractiveness and just kind of like the thrill. I mean, it's essentially lust, right? And then you kind of like put a bow on it and you post your little pretty Instagram picture and think it's love. And that was like, I think what was like the most, it wasn't like a shock, like in a bad, like my whole body is like, can't handle this. It was this very like calm shock, like where I was like, I felt like I was wrapped in a blanket of like, oh, this person's really cool. And like, they're like, I can't imagine not being friends with them. And that was what was confusing about like all the other stuff. Cause I'm like, oh, I'm also really attracted to you. Like, but like if this doesn't, I have exes that I'm friends with and like, I can tell like, oh, like I actually only view them as a friend. Like I am not like attracted to them anymore because like that little fire does burn out. Whereas like, we're kind of like a candle that sits in the living room and lights up the room. That was so cheesy. I don't know why I said that.
Would you like to name drop anybody?
Oh, that was unhinged, Tom.
I think so much of this is like, people, obviously, you know this, people come to you for relationship advice. They come to me for it. Or it's not so much advice as it is like just perspective.
Yeah.
Can you offer me some sort of neutral perspective or some sort of insightful, I trust your opinion on things. I don't feel that we can take what we have and be like, this is the blueprint. Like, you need to do it this way. And most oftentimes I feel like people are trying to recreate something that they see like on social media or on TV or something else like that. And that's well and good. And there's nothing wrong with being cute on Instagram and being, the whatever aesthetic looking, filling those roles and the niche that is being like a cute couple. But I also think that there's no reason to like set your expectations for any one of those things, or to limit what you're looking for if you are looking for a partner. And like you said, when we first started, we weren't looking for really anything. It was just we were both vulnerable enough to, want to at least have somebody to talk to,
Do you remember that like morning where I was staying with my parents and they left to go on a vacation and we had the entire house to ourselves, and it was like I was a toddler. We had like YouTube going and we were playing like all like my like I was playing all like my girly throwback music videos, like Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, like, Cinderella story songs, like, Jimmy Eat World, Hear You Hear Me, like, and then I put on What Dreams Are Made Of from the Lizzie McGuire movie. And it was like, I will say this was like, we had known each other basically only a week at that point, maybe 2
weeks or so.
Yeah. And I just felt like I didn't have to try at all with Tom. Like, obviously you try in like the cute, flirty way. Like, that's natural. But like, I didn't have to pretend to like hide my shine at all. If anything, I was running around, jumping on the couches. Mind you, this is like the morning. Like, I am not drunk. I am absolutely sober. I'm just being me because that's actually what I do when I'm by myself. Like, I run around and I dance like I'm a little out there. And you were just sitting there and you were smiling like I was funny. And I know some people don't think I'm funny. And like, you were just like happy to like watch me do my thing and you weren't scared. Like, I remember boys in college thinking that I was crazy. And I wasn't crazy.
I'm not sure I could give you an accurate or an adequate memory bank of what I was thinking back then.
Because you don't remember, or you don't want to tell me?
I don't think I remember.
Okay.
You could put a CTE joke in there. I don't know. I know
Tom played football.
a lot of our friends like to joke about that. No, I hadn't obviously, like, I'd talked to plenty of girls, whatnot. I'd never like been in that situation, like, where at the point at which we were at, which was like we were.
Because how old were we?
Fully
22?
21. I was 21.
Oh, yeah.
But just like fully talking and like, sort of figuring out like if this was going to like be something to either pursue or just like whatever. And you doing that, I don't know. I guess I probably did think it was funny. I wasn't afraid of you. I think I just was like, oh, this is just your personality. But I mean, to be as like simple and logical as I could have been, like, well, what else would I be doing right now? It's like a morning. Like, it's not like I'd be doing something else. It was like home for the, in between semesters and like whatever. So I just looked at it as like, oh yes, this is what Davy Jags does. So I was definitely excited. I didn't know what to expect, but I was willing to be like, let's see how this plays out. And at some point you left the energy of like, I'm going to bounce around and jump on the couch. And it was more like, I'm going to bounce around and like jump on top of you on the ground while I was sitting there. And I was like, okay, I can work with this.
Okay. Well, on that note, yeah, no, I think that everyone should let us know, like, we are not perfection by any means, like, especially after 3 years of long distance, which we're finally not. Yay us. But like, there's been so many things that we've learned, I think, not just as a couple, but like individually. And I think this is a missing component of the show because, we bring on individual guests and we always sometimes just get caught in our own bubbles and things like that. But like, I always articulate that Sparkle is something that evolves. It's a movement. It's about more than me and you. It's a collective. It's us. And so like, what does it mean to reclaim this happiness, passion, and self-worth, not just through our art and creativity, but with one another, because one another is what informs all of those things at the end of the day. And I think now we need that more than ever. So yeah, we look forward to hearing what you want us to talk about, and we'll give our best yap about it.
You can go and vote for us to win America's Favorite Couple still. So
yeah, so we can actually keep this going.
Yeah, no, we can. If we win that, obviously you can donate to those great causes that they have. But you do get free votes as well. So might as well vote for us. I'm sure it would make for some good content.
Tom's face does belong in a magazine, whether he likes it or not. I think we need to see his face in a magazine.
I'll be all right. I think you deserve to be in a magazine.
Thank you, Thomas. But
I think you have more of a I should be in a magazine personality than I do. So
okay, well, we're gonna end on that note. Thanks, Tom. Sparkle on. See you in the car.
Sparkle on.